Today, Yvette Cooper took center stage in the House of Commons, addressing questions from parliamentarians concerning the recent and tragic Southport attack. This incident has sparked heated discussions, not least between Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp and Yvette Cooper, who clashed over the government's handling of the situation. Philp strongly criticized the apparent silence from the government, arguing that it created a dangerous information void, allowing misinformation to spread unchecked. This, he stated, left the public vulnerable to speculation and uncertainty during a time when clarity and leadership were desperately needed. In today's session, we delve into this fiery exchange, unpacking the key points raised and what they mean for the wider political landscape. Alongside this, we will review and react to the latest developments from the past 24 hours, ensuring you stay informed on the most pressing issues. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to join our growing community. Your support is invaluable as we explore these critical topics together.
Welcome and support the inquiry announced yesterday. I asked the Home Secretary to confirm that it will be placed on a statutory footing as soon as possible to ensure its independence and also to enable it to compel disclosure of the evidence which it may need. It is vital to get to the truth about what opportunities may have existed to stop the evil perpetrator, Axel Radicabana, from committing these sickening murders. Radicabana was encountered multiple times, as the Home Secretary said, by the police, social services, the school system and the Prevent programme over a period of several years. The inquiry will find out, I hope, whether mistakes were made or whether the law needs to change. And the Home Secretary mentioned some areas that will rightly be looked at, and I support that. I hope the Home Secretary can also confirm this will include consideration of whether the Mental Health Act was adequate for this case. The Home Secretary has also rightly referred to Prevent. A review of Prevent was conducted by William Shawcross, and the last government responded in February 2024. Will the Home Secretary now commit to implementing all of the recommendations of the Shawcross review? Let me now turn to what happened after the murders and to the importance of openness and transparency. Firstly, and this is a very serious and important question, will the Home Secretary confirm that the inquiry will also cover the government, police and CPS response to the murders, and especially the handling of public communications and the appalling riots that followed? It's a very important question. I would be grateful if the Home Secretary would directly answer that in her response. Now, the Prime Minister this morning acknowledged that he knew about the background to the case and to Radicabana himself, including the fact that he had been referred to Prevent on 3 separate occasions and that Radicabana had been found to be in possession of ricin, a highly toxic chemical, and a manual detailing al-Qaeda terrorist methods, itself an offence under the Terrorism Act. The Prime Minister also said this morning that he did not disclose any of this to the public in the days and weeks after the murders for fear of prejudicing the subsequent murder trial. And it is, of course, important for journalists and for politicians, and indeed this House, to do nothing that might prejudice a trial. But David Hall, KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, said this on the Today programme in the context of this case in October, and it bears quoting in full. Jonathan Hall said this: "The government has to be aware that if there is an information gap, then other voices, particularly on social media, will fill that gap." He went on, "If there is any information you can give, put it in the public domain and be really careful you don't fall into the trap of saying, 'We can say zilch because there are criminal proceedings.' Quite often," he said, "there is a fair amount that can be put into the public domain." Jonathan Hall concluded by saying, "The police now realise that just saying there is a charge, we can't say any more, is not going to cut it these days." So the independent reviewer is saying that the government and police can put some material into the public domain without prejudicing subsequent trials. And in fact, on October the 29th, Radicabana was charged with possessing the ricin and the terror manual. That was then made public. So if it can be made public in October without risking prejudice of the murder trial, it follows that it could have been made public in August without prejudicing that same trial. Background facts on other cases over the years have been made public after arrest and before trial without prejudice, and the shields relating to 2 of those cases are in this chamber. So why did the Prime Minister not make public some of this background information in August when he knew it, when later disclosure of that information in October demonstrated such disclosure could be made without prejudice? And why did the Deputy Prime Minister on July the 31st dismiss as, and I quote, fake news, those saying there may be further facts to come out? Let me just briefly, Mr. Speaker, before concluding, explain why this is important. As Jonathan Hall said, if there is a void, then misinformation, especially online, can fill that void. And this appears to be what happened here. And some of that information, it is said, originated overseas from hostile states. It is possible, indeed it is even likely, that this misinformation that was put into the void fueled the totally unacceptable riots we then subsequently saw. So, will the Home Secretary accept, given what I've just said and what Jonathan Hall said, does she accept there should and could have been more openness and transparency, as I just set out, without prejudicing the trial, and that disclosing more of that truth openly and transparently would have helped combat the damaging misinformation that circulated and which arguably fueled the riots? Will she confirm the inquiry will look at that aspect of events? Mr. Speaker, this was an appalling tragedy. Young girls murdered with their whole lives ahead of them. Let us all learn the lessons from this tragedy in honour of their memory.
Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Shadow Home Secretary raised a series of points, which is obviously a substantial shift in position for him and his party from the position they have taken in government. He asked about whether the status of the inquiry. I can confirm it's going to start quickly on a non-statutory basis in the same way that the Angelini inquiry did, but I can confirm it will be given whatever powers it needs, including on a statutory basis, so that it can get any information that it needs. He referred to the Shawcross review. I can confirm that the government has implemented 33 out of the 34 recommendations, but I would just gently point out to him that actually the approach that the Shawcross review took was to say that the PREVENT programme should be narrowed and should actually just focus particularly on the cases around terrorism, and in fact could have put at risk, actually including less cases like this where ideology is less clear. He then raises the issue about the information that was provided, and he will know that the Contempt of Court Act was set out in 1981. Jonathan Hall has indeed highlighted the problem of disinformation online, social media actors who are not bound by the same rules that the police, the media and the government follow. And he refers, for example, to the name and the nationality being provided, which in practice they were in this case, after misinformation appeared online. But ultimately, he has also said all of this is governed by the Contempt of Court Act 1981, and the Law Commission is reviewing that. But it is not for the government to ignore the law or the advice that we are given when justice for families is at stake. And let me point out to him that the previous Conservative government did not publish information before the trial about the PREVENT referral for the perpetrator who killed Sir David Amess. None of us criticised them for that because none of us wanted to put at risk justice for Sir David's family, nor did they publish information before the trial on the PREVENT referral of the asylum seeker who killed Tom Roberts. In fact, they didn't even publish that after the trial. It only came out in the inquest. And the minister, who even after the trial refused to answer my questions on whether they knew that he was wanted for murdering 2 people in Serbia when he was allowed to enter the country, was the current Shadow Justice Secretary. Now, we have been keen to publish the information on PREVENT referrals from the start, but throughout, the advice to us has been clear. And if we had ignored
the advice that we were given from about the case that put towards us and about the information that the police and the CPS were working through in order to get justice. And if, as a result, a killer had walked free, no one would ever have forgiven the government or anyone else. The most important thing is to get justice, and then once justice is secured, to make sure at this point the questions are answered about what went wrong and why 3 young girls' lives were lost. That is the question he should be focusing on right now.
The tragic events in Southport have left an indelible mark on the nation, highlighting the need for accountability, transparency, and reform. As Parliament grapples with the aftermath of this appalling attack, the focus remains on justice for the victims and learning from systemic failures to prevent such tragedies in the future. While the inquiry promises to shed light on what went wrong, it also serves as a stark reminder of the importance of addressing broader issues that pose ongoing challenges to national security and public trust. Shifting from this solemn discussion to another pressing matter, we turn our attention to the growing crisis in the English Channel. In recent months, the UK has faced an unprecedented surge in small boat crossings, with over 1,000 migrants entering British waters illegally since the start of the year. This alarming milestone was reached a full week earlier than last year, reflecting the increasing determination of smuggling gangs and the desperation of those seeking a better life. On Tuesday morning alone, 2 overcrowded boats managed to navigate the perilous journey, carrying more than 120 people who were later processed at the Border Force Migrant Centre in Dover Harbour. The scene at Dover has become a familiar one, with arrivals climbing steadily despite the harsh winter conditions. Reports indicate that one boat carried 69 migrants, while the other transported 54, bringing the provisional total for the year to 1,131 individuals. These figures paint a stark picture of a crisis that shows no signs of abating. Last year, more than 36,800 migrants made the same hazardous crossing, a 25% increase from 2023, when 29,043 arrivals were recorded. Tragically, 2024 also became the deadliest year for Channel crossings, with over 50 deaths, including a Syrian migrant who was crushed in an overcrowded vessel near the French coast. This crisis has raised serious questions about the UK's immigration policies and the effectiveness of current deterrent measures. The Prime Minister, who assumed office in July, vowed to dismantle the criminal smuggling networks facilitating these crossings. Adopting a hardline law enforcement approach, the government has intensified efforts to target these gangs both domestically and abroad. However, progress has been slow, and the scale of the challenge remains daunting. Criticism has also been leveled at the opposition's handling of migration. Sir Keir Starmer, upon taking office, scrapped the previous government's controversial Rwanda deterrent scheme on his first day, describing it as a gimmick that failed to address the root causes of illegal migration. The scheme, which had already consumed millions of taxpayer pounds, aimed to relocate asylum seekers to Rwanda for processing but faced widespread legal and ethical objections. Instead, Starmer pledged to redirect resources towards bolstering the National Crime Agency and establishing a new border security command to combat smuggling gangs more effectively. While these policy shifts signal a desire for change, critics argue that they lack the immediate impact needed to stem the tide of crossings. Many point to the growing camps along the northern coast of France, where thousands of migrants await their chance to make the dangerous journey. Smuggling gangs, undeterred by harsher penalties or increased surveillance, continue to exploit vulnerable individuals, charging exorbitant fees and placing lives at risk. One senior maritime source described the situation as a relentless cycle, with gangs showing no signs of backing down despite the unpredictable winter weather. The human cost of this crisis cannot be overstated. The perilous crossings, often undertaken in unseaworthy vessels, have claimed countless lives and exposed thousands more to unimaginable hardship. The tragic loss of life, including children and families, underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and compassionate response. Yet, the debate over how to achieve this remains deeply polarized. On one hand, there is a growing call for stricter border controls and more robust enforcement measures to deter illegal crossings. Supporters of this approach argue that only by dismantling smuggling networks and imposing severe penalties on those who facilitate migration can the crisis be effectively addressed. On the other hand, human rights advocates stress the importance of tackling the root causes of migration, such as conflict, poverty, and persecution, while ensuring safe and legal pathways for those seeking refuge. The Home Office has reiterated its commitment to ending these dangerous crossings, acknowledging the severe strain they place on border security and public resources. A spokesperson stated, "We all want to end these perilous small boat crossings, which threaten lives and undermine our border security. The people smuggling gangs do not care if the vulnerable individuals they exploit live or die, as long as they pay. We will stop at nothing to dismantle their business models and bring them to justice." However, delivering on this promise will require more than rhetoric. It demands a coordinated international effort to address the crisis at its source, alongside a review of domestic policies to ensure they align with the values of fairness and humanity. The Prime Minister's focus on a law enforcement approach, while necessary, must be complemented by initiatives that provide genuine support for asylum seekers and address the systemic issues driving migration. As the government and opposition continue to debate the best path forward, the lives of thousands hang in the balance. The coming months will be critical in determining whether the UK can navigate this complex challenge while upholding its commitments to both security and compassion. The nation watches closely, hoping for solutions that prioritize both human dignity and the rule of law. What do you think about the government's handling of the migration crisis? Are current policies enough to make a difference, or is a new approach needed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis of British political issues. Together, we can continue exploring these vital topics and fostering meaningful discussions. Thank you for watching. Take care, and see you next time.